Hello, everyone. Thank you for the introduction, and it is a privilege to be back here after too many years away, and to be able to share whatever experience I have. I like to think of myself as somewhere, certainly not a role model, but hopefully not too much of a cautionary tale. So I graduated from in 2000 from the master's program, originally intended to be a journalist. That quickly fell aside. I ended up working in financial PR in London on behalf of Russian companies. And I later moved into setting up my own business, doing financial communications, due diligence, and strategic research. Those three things may seem at even times contradictory, but were largely a product of that was the work people would give me. So I have organized my brief thoughts here really as kind of three important things that I think REECA provides us with as we go out into the world, and it certainly allowed me to at least earn a living and have some very interesting experiences, which is really what I've sought to get out of my professional career to date. So first, I would say, is mastering the Russian language will change your life. I think the very fact that I had some very strict Russian language instructors here. No names will be raised, but they're drilling on both translation and conversation and how to read economic texts and to master so many nasty little bits of economic and military terminology has actually made it possible for me to always find work, no matter what was going on in this part of the world. Second, I would say it provides, if nothing else, in your personal life, intellectual and spiritual nourishment, because Russian is always a source of Russian media and things like that may make us angry, but is always interesting. Finally, I would say it allows me in dealing with Russian clients who may be businessmen, who may be journalists, to have a sort of общий язык, a common language in which we can relate to each other, and I think that's tremendously important. My second lesson I would say is that Russia, Ukraine, Kazakhstan, Azerbaijan, all the rest, all the former CIS countries will always be relevant. I remember when I started at REECA was a few days after the 1998 crisis, and a banker famously said, "I'd rather eat nuclear waste than buy Russian securities." We've seen moments like that in 2007. We are seeing it again in 2014. I was in Donetsk with a client in March and saw the prologue of the tragic events that have happened there. But I would say that for good or ill, it's not really a matter of optimism or pessimism. It will just simply be there in another form. And if you bet your life on this region, for good or ill, it will always be relevant one way or another. Finally, I guess the other lesson I've learned, which has meant a lot to me and has allowed me to work in this part of the world, is to understand that history matters. Now, I'm going to quote an unnamed Kennedy School professor who said famously in one of his classes when I was here, "History begins when I get off the plane." I would politely disagree with that. Although, obviously, he's had a more storied and distinguished career than I have. That being said, when I was here, I frankly, personally, always disagreed with the transition model. But it is important to understand, and I realize when dealing with Russian officials or dealing with people who, of a certain, Russian liberals, that this mode of talking was, influenced them. I think more substantively, when doing projects in Kazakhstan, doing projects in Russia, when you're dealing with business executives or journalists, whatever, is you have to understand the legacy of privatization, of ethnic politics, if you look at what's going on with Yevtushenko in Bashkortostan, and these oil assets, these go ethnic politics, all these things that we learned and probably napped through some of it here is relevant. History does matter. It matters in people's everyday lives in a very acute way. And the more you understand it, the more respect you show to them, the more respect they'll show to you. And with those random thoughts, I will conclude. Thank you very much for the opportunity.